$1 billion to award in loan guarantees should it choose to. If my amendment passes, there will still be the same amount of money. I urge support for the amendment.
The gentleman's time has expired. Does the gentleman from Florida rise in opposition?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the amendment.
Recognized for 5 minutes.
My colleagues, this amendment would allow the Title 17 loan guarantee program to go on, continue indefinitely. The committee's 18-month investigation made one thing I think absolutely clear. The Title 17 loan guarantee program must be eliminated. No more Solyndras. Act accomplishes this goal, is wholly supported by the Oversight Investigation Committee and by the full committee. We support all of the above. National energy policy embraces a diverse range of traditional and alternative energy resources, but we don't support the federal government playing venture capitalists with taxpayers' money. The gentleman from California mentions innovation, and I would submit to him that the iPhone, the iPad, the iPod all came without government picking winners and losers. While the government has a role, some type of role in fostering the development of new energy technologies, but primarily through research and development. The committee's investigation made clear that the government should not be in the business of picking winners and losers. And like the editorial that I put in the earlier from the Wall Street Journal, China is in the same fix as we are, and a lot of their solar panel companies are going bankrupt. The government needs to get out of the loan guarantee business altogether, and that's why we need to pass this law. And with that, I give 2 minutes to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Murphy.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. White House advisor Larry Summers said it best when one of Solyndra's own investors was astonished to learn his startup firm qualified for this massive DOE earmark, and Summers replied, the government is a, quote, crappy venture capitalist, unquote. Nearly 3 years and $1 billion in losses to taxpayers later, isn't it clear the Department of Energy loan program has failed? Many of us want our country to implement a comprehensive, successful energy independence strategy that uses clean coal, nuclear, clean natural gas, and other sources. That's why Chairman Upton's bill included an amendment I authored to have the GAO examine the kinds of subsidies and assistance foreign governments give to their energy companies. But after an 18-month investigation by the committee, the truth is the current loan program as it stands cannot be salvaged. We found that the loopholes created in this program by thwarting the letter and spirit of the law have shaken its foundation. Solyndra was rushed, reckless, and political. It was rushed because the entire stimulus loan program was built to get money out the door quickly. The law originally said they had to pay it back, complete the projects, and the taxpayers had to be paid back first. And these taxpayer safety nets was removed. Second, it was reckless. Officials at OMB, DOE, Treasury, and outside investment professionals all warned that Solyndra was doomed to fail. Even Solyndra employees questioned its longevity. And finally, it was political. Campaign bundler George Kaiser made 16 visits to the White House about Solyndra. This committee uncovered emails between Kaiser and White House officials on Solyndra, and there were internal deliberations about how the White House could mask the bad news of Solyndra's bankruptcy. Those are the facts. It's time to turn out the lights on Solyndra and this DOE loan program. I urge a no vote on the amendment and support for the bill. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Florida.
How much time, Mr. Chairman, do I have?
Gentleman from Florida has 2 minutes remaining.
Will the gentleman yield to me for a question?
No. Let me just close. I have 2 minutes remaining. You know, in an ideal world, the government would never really gone down this road to create these loan guarantee programs in the first place. I think all of us realize that. And while eliminating the program outright, you know, is admittedly appealing, and I think a lot of us on this side of the aisle wanted to do that, we must be mindful of the fact that applicants in the queue have already invested significant time and financial resources towards simply securing their loan guarantee, and they have really narrowed their financing options also in reliance of the existence of their program. So the question would be, when we thought about this, is it fair to change the rules in the middle of the game? We're the United States government. We hear all the time that the government changes the rules. We should be striving to reduce risk caused by the federal government, not create it, and that's why I said in my statement here is that we have to be mindful of the fact that some of the applicants have already committed themselves and have put their time in. But I think we can learn from this Solyndra debacle, and based upon this amendment by Mr. Waxman, I think we realize that in the end that the No More Solyndra Act tackles all the points that he's concerned about, and for that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time, and I urge a no vote on the Waxman amendment.
Gentleman yields back his time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from California. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. No. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, on that I request a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from California will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, proceedings will now resume on those amendments printed in House Report 112-668, on which further proceedings were postponed in the following order. Amendment number 1 by Ms. Jeanette DeJet of Colorado, and Amendment number 2 by Mr. Waxman of California. The chair will reduce to 2 minutes the maximum time for any electronic vote after the first series of votes. The unfinished business is the request for a recorded vote on the Amendment number 1 printed in House Report 112-668 by the gentleman from Colorado, Ms. Jett, on which further proceedings were postponed, on which the ayes prevailed by a voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment number 1, printed in House Report number 112-668, offered by Ms. DeGette of Colorado.
Recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of the request for recorded vote will rise and be counted, a sufficient number having arisen. A recorded vote is ordered, and members record their vote by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
The House finishing up its week by debating a bill that would limit federal loan guarantees for clean and renewable energy projects. It's in reaction to the Solyndra bankruptcy. That's the California company that defaulted on $535 million loan, and the government had to cover the loss. The bill would limit the Energy Department's ability to issue these types of loan guarantees. It also adds penalties for officials who fail to comply with the bill's requirements. 4 votes here. The first 2 are amendment votes. This is Diana DeGette, Representative DeGette of Colorado, her amendment. It's a 15-minute vote. And for some background on the bill, we spoke to a Capitol Hill reporter. Doug Obey is a reporter for Inside EPA and Clean Energy Report. Tell us what's the impetus behind this bill that would prevent the Department of Energy from continuing this clean energy loan guarantee program.
Well, the impetus is the political fallout from the bankruptcy of the solar firm Solyndra, as well as several other firms that received government support under loan guarantee programs. And as a result of that, it's become a highly political, actually. Presidential candidate Mitt Romney has made an issue of this in the campaign, and in an effort to put the Obama administration on the defensive on its management of the program. And so this bill is part of this discussion. It would essentially stop the program for any applications that were filed after the end of last year. It would also include some additional transparency requirements and requirements for the Department of Energy to consult with the Treasury Department, and it would prevent something called subordination, under which the government has the option of not being first in line to get its money back in the event of a bankruptcy.
Well, to date, how much money, how many of these loans have been put out there by DOE?
At this moment, there are about $35 billion worth of loans that have been put out there. That is actually under several loan guarantee programs. There's actually more than one program, but this encompasses both something called the 1703 program that was created in 2005, that was expanded by the stimulus package in 2009, and that to something called the 1705 program. And there's also a separate program for encouraging advanced vehicle technologies, which is included in that total, but is not actually affected by this bill.
Back to Solyndra for a second. Has the experience with that company spoiled the environment for the development of these types of technologies?
Well, it's definitely cast a political pall over the issue and changed the terms of the debate in many ways in Washington on what the government's role is in supporting these companies. I mean, this is part of a larger debate and narrative going on about what is the responsibility of not just DOE, but the federal government as a whole in backing new technology. As to whether this spoils the larger environment outside of that process, a lot of clean energy proponents would dispute that and say that actually the clean energy industry is doing very well, that the Solyndra bankruptcy is being overplayed relative to the importance of the rest of the industry.
Well, are some of these companies that are getting the loan guarantees in Republican districts? Back to politics for a second, and if so, what are the members in those districts saying about potential legislation coming up?
Well, it's true. I mean, the potential beneficiaries of this program are all over the country. There is something of an unease among some Republicans about this bill. A couple of them did vote against the legislation in the committee markup of that proposal. There were others who ultimately supported the bill. They kind of towed the party line on the issue, but expressed some initial reservations during the early stage of the markup process. One of them was Joe Barton, who was the House Energy and Commerce Committee chairman in 2005 when the first version of the loan guarantee program was created. And he was asked during the proceeding how he felt about this, and his answer was that he had feelings about the bill.
Well, looking ahead to the political season in the fall when Congress returns, this bill has passed the Energy and Commerce Committee. What's ahead when the bill comes to the House?
Well, the schedule for the House consideration on that is not immediately clear, but there's a separate question. Even if this were to clear the House, there's obviously the Senate would have to act on this bill as well, and there doesn't seem to be any real stomach for doing much of that in the Senate right now. Senator Lisa Murkowski, who's the ranking Republican on the Senate Energy Committee, is one of those who's expressed basically a amend it, not end it kind of approach to the program. She wants it to be examined. She wants to discuss reforms, but she has stopped short of saying that she wants to end the program.
Doug Obey is a reporter for Inside EPA and Clean Energy Report. Thanks for the update. And the House is actually voting on amendments now to the bill you heard about, the bill that would limit the federal loan guarantees for Solyndra-type loans, the clean and renewable energy projects. This is a 15-minute vote. It's the first of 2 amendment votes, and then we expect a Democratic motion to recommit and also then the final passage, and that should do it for legislative work for the House this week. Yesterday, they passed a bill, a Republican bill, that would call on the President to rescind some of the defense sequester cuts that would go into effect in the beginning of January 2013. Today, the White House is expected to release from the Office of Management and Budget reports detailing how the mandated cuts, scheduled to go into effect on January 2nd, will affect the military and also domestic programs in the fiscal 2013 budget. That report has not been released yet. It's expected to be released sometime today. But Jim Himes, congressman from Connecticut, was on the Washington Journal this morning and talked about the sequester and also about the budget issues and more. We'll show you as much of that conversation as we can as this vote continues.
Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. He's a member of the Financial Services Committee in Congress, and before I ask him a question about QE3, I want to tell you at home a little bit about him so you know his background coming into Congress. Finishing his 2nd term and up for re-election, came to Congress from Goldman Sachs, and he also ran the New York City branch of the Enterprise Community Partners, a nonprofit dedicated to urban poverty solutions, and Harvard College graduate, Rhodes Scholar, Oxford University graduate, brings all that to his Financial Services Committee work, where he serves on the Capital Markets and Government-Sponsored Entities Subcommittee and Oversights and Investigations Subcommittee. So, with all that big background, yesterday the Fed announcing a very specific change in its direction with QE3. Briefly, it has no end that is suggested, and it's also focused on mortgage-backed securities. How do you believe this will help the jobs market, which is what the chairman said his purpose was?
Well, you know, what you see the Fed doing here is being probably more aggressive than it would be if the other lever that the government has to improve the economy were being used. And of course, I refer to fiscal policy, you know, which the Congress should be doing. You know, out there funding the rebuilding of our bridges and our airports and our railways, putting people to work to do that, financing that with 0% real interest rates. And like, I understand that's additional spending, But, you know, if you had half a semester of, you know, college economics, you know that you got two levers. You got monetary and you got fiscal. And the Republican majority, of course, for the last 2 years has said absolutely no fiscal effort on the part of the Congress. So here you have the Fed, you know, taking some extraordinary and new, frankly, measures to do what they can to restore jobs to the economy.
I'd love to have you give us a little brief seminar on how it could work, if you would, because combined with the Operation Twist, the Fed is injecting $85 billion a month into the economy with the two sets of purchases. Let's stay with the announcement yesterday, concentrating on mortgage-backed securities. He suggested that it will bring mortgage rates down, but they're already at historic lows. How does that help create jobs?
Well, I think you see two effects here. One, you just see a commitment on the part of the Federal Reserve to doing what it can to urge the recovery along. And you saw this effect, of course, and you've seen it in the last week in the stock market. You know, I think the stock market closed yesterday at pretty much a record high. And so that's investors saying, wow, we've actually got a player in Washington concerned with restoring economic health. And of course, the Fed, very interestingly, of course, saying that they were going to buy mortgage-backed securities. That does a couple of things. One, you know, the housing market, of course, you know, despite all of the political rhetoric you hear, the primary problem we have in the economy today is consumer demand. And the biggest factor in why consumers are nervous right now is that tens of millions of them are really worried about whether they're going to be able to pay that mortgage, or about the fact that they're underwater with their mortgage. So the Fed says we're going to buy mortgage-based paper. These securities, which of course were at the very core of the meltdown that we had, are maturing over time. The Fed's buying them. That provides a little bit of a floor, a little bit of a support in that market, and you know, hopefully does exactly what they said it was going to do, which is keep interest rates low in that particular market.
In order to spend $85 billion a month, does the Fed have to, quote unquote, print money to do it?
Well, remember, they're not spending. I mean, they're using their balance sheet. And what we have seen, and what we've seen in the Fed's history, of course, is that the Fed's balance sheet gets bigger and it gets smaller. Now, the critics of this approach make 2 points. They say, one, it may not have an effect, and, you know, there is a limit to what the Fed can do by itself, which, again, is why it's so bad that the institution in which I serve has failed to do its role on the fiscal side. But the other risk, of course, is, and the critics are right to point this out, is inflation. Have we seen any inflation in the last 4 years in which the Republicans have said you're going to see lots of inflation, you're going to see lots of inflation? We've seen no inflation. So you're mindful of that, as I'm sure Ben Bernanke is, but to date we have not seen any, you know, issue there.
Well, let's listen to the Fed chief, where he, as he has quite often recently, exhorts Congress to do its part in addressing the economy. We'll listen in.
If the fiscal cliff isn't addressed, as I've said, I don't think our tools are strong enough to offset the effects of a major fiscal shock. So we'd have to think about what to do in that contingency. So I think it's really important for the fiscal policymakers to, you know, work together and try to find a solution for that.
So, Congressman Hines, yesterday, House of Representatives, with a very broad majority, passing a continuing resolution that puts off spending decisions until the spring. What does that suggest about the ability to find some sort of compromise for the so-called fiscal cliff issues?
Well, what you saw happen yesterday, of course, I think was a good thing for the country, and boy, is the bar low these days. You know, I mean, if we can actually sort of keep things on our current trajectory and not cause a crisis, you know, we have a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of a celebration. But, you know, so what happened yesterday means the government does not shut down. And, of course, it was politics. The Republican majority in the House recognizes that they're on their heels, that the American public is seeing them as obstructionist, and consequently they wisely said, you know what, we don't need to do another brinksmanship, another let's shut down the government, which, of course, has never worked all that well for them. And so they, you know, beat up their own conference in a way to get enough votes to pass a continuing resolution. So nothing changes there. And fortunately, on top of everything else, the fiscal cliff, we're not dealing with the prospect of a government shutdown. What it says for the prospect of our actually getting the deal done, and you know I've been very supportive of the notion that we need to do the grand bargain, go big, all that, you know, bring about something that looks like Simpson Bowles. I'm not sure it tells us a lot. What is very important to success there, of course, is the horrendousness of the automatic spending cuts that occur on December 31st and the automatic tax increases that come with the expiration of the Bush tax cuts. That stuff is macroeconomically toxic. It is a doomsday device, and the one thing that will get the House of Representatives and the Congress as a whole to do the deal that we know needs to be done, should have been done 6 months ago, but will be done, to avoid the catastrophe that would be the automatic spending cuts and tax increases.
The House had a second piece of legislation. Your office put a press release about your voting against it. That is the defense sequester cut legislation. What did you see as the intent of the bill they put forward?
Sure. Well, it's Congress being a weasel. And what I mean by that is, remember what I just said about the one thing that's going to cause the Congress to arrive at the big deal, the grand bargain, Simpson-Bowles, plus or minus, however you want to characterize it, is the severity and the awfulness of these hammers. So you've got a bunch of hammers, right? You've got the automatic tax increases, which of course, in weaseling out from underneath these hammers fashion, a couple of weeks ago, the House majority said, oh, we should make those go away. Let's make those go away because they're really scary. Yesterday, what we saw was a defense-oriented thing. So the other hammer is cuts to defense and cuts to non-defense. So those three hammers are over our heads right now. And, of course, they're uncomfortable. They're difficult to talk about. They're, as I've already said, really damaging to the economy. So Congress is doing what it, at its worst moments, is tempted to do, which is say, oh, gosh, this stuff is terrible. Let's make it go away. Yes, let's make it go away. But let's make it go away because we replace them with a fair and balanced big deal to get our country on a sustained fiscal path. The nightmare scenario in my mind is that, again, Congress just says, gosh, this is really uncomfortable. Defense cuts, cuts to doctors, tax increases, it's really uncomfortable. Let's make them all go away. And we make them all go away, which we could, if we voted to do so. And guess what? At some point, the bond market says to us, you can no longer govern your country. And we see a 200, I'm making these numbers up, but we see a 200 basis points increase in our Treasury rates. And you know what? Then we're having that negotiation at the point of a metaphorical gun rather than doing it gracefully, as we should be.
Last question for me before we go to calls. You've been critical of Congress in each of these answers here, and in fact the institution has historically low public approval ratings. Why are you a candidate for re-election? Why do you want to serve in this institution?
You know why? Because this institution, although it's in a moment in time of great polarization, this institution has the potential to do big and great things. And of course, the first thing we need to do is to actually strike that deal. And I was one of the 38 people who voted for the Simpson-Bowles budget when it was on the floor, the only budget that day that got bipartisan support. And so, it's been a wrestling match over the last 2 years or so, but we know we need to strike that deal. First, to do the responsible thing, and secondly, and just as importantly, so that we get back to the business of investing in our railways, our highways, our system of education, so that kids are competitive. That's actually an exciting prospect, and it doesn't come easy. It doesn't come easy, but I didn't jump into this job for it to be easy.
Mr. Hines is our only congressional guest on this Friday morning. We have a shorter show today, just 2 hours, because Congress is in session early. Regular watchers will note that yesterday we had Congressman Scott Garrett, a Republican from New Jersey, at the table. Let's get to calls for Mr. Hines. We're going to begin with Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Sylvia is a Republican there. Hi, Sylvia. Your question for the Congressman.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking my call. I am so happy to hear and see when the Republicans or Democrats come to the forefront and talk on the C-SPAN show. I am so glad that you have a live call-in show. I have two questions for you, Republican Jim Himes. I am so happy that you're with the Financial Services Committee as a member. You probably have been doing that for many, many years. The first question that I have for you is about mortgages. I've never owned my own home. I'm a military mom, and I would love to own my own home. I heard something about the stimulus. How would that help me? And will these banks that you guys get together and give some money to help the low income with stability own their own first-time home? The second question that I have is, what about education? I know that you all have been looking at the Chicago location pertaining to over 400-some-odd-thousand teachers which are striking, which is at their 5th day. And what do you propose that this strike could happen all over the nation? What do
Sylvia,
you propose?
Let me jump in at that point. Thanks. We've got two questions from you and a short time with the Congressman this morning. First on mortgages and low-income applicants.
Yeah. Well, first, actually, Sylvia identified herself as a military mom, and Sylvia, thank you very much for the sacrifices your family and the fear and the anxiety you undoubtedly put up with for being a military family. Thank you for doing that. Secondly, on mortgages, you know, great question, because the answer is that hardworking families that want to own their own home should absolutely have the path to do so. And of course, in the last couple of years, following the financial meltdown, that's been very difficult. The banks have been very reluctant to lend. The regulatory structure around the mortgage market has been evolving, hopefully improving, I think improving. But we need to be mindful of the fact that at the very core of the meltdown that we had that devastated this economy, of course, was overdoing that very good instinct. In other words, selling families mortgages that they couldn't possibly repay, complicated mortgages, mortgages that folks didn't understand. So, you know, this government has always, through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, through various, particularly on the military side, programs that help with down payments, that provide for lower cost mortgages, pursued that goal of making sure that our families can own their own home. But we do need to be careful not to recreate the mistakes of the past and overdo that. So key issue, and by the way, I think with today's economy, you know, maybe number one on the list of things that continues to create some uncertainty for people. On education, also a great question. You know, here in Washington, you hear people talk about jobs, 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 as though the government could wave a magic wand and create jobs. You know, the government can hire more nurses, it can hire more firefighters, it can hire more policemen. At the end of the day, we probably ought to have exactly the right number of, you know, firefighters and policemen to keep our communities safe. But the government doesn't create jobs, per se, the way the private sector does. But you know what it does do? It can make sure that every kid in this country has the math knowledge, the thinking ability, the innovative qualities that are going to allow that kid to either be a superb employee in someone's company or to actually start their own company. And you know what? We're falling behind. You know, you see these ads in the New York Times and elsewhere about how we're number 17 on math scores, we're falling behind on high school graduation. If we were having a truly honest conversations about jobs, we would be talking about how we restore our public school system, and not just our public schools, but our community college and our universities to the very best in the world, and how we make those systems affordable to every kid in this country. That's a jobs program.
From Twitter, C-SPAN Junkie is the handle, and this person asks, inflation last year was over 2%. With interest rates under 1%, savings are losing buying power. Aren't savings necessary for growth?
And of course, this has been a particular problem for often our senior citizens who rely on dividends, on interest payments, on bonds and whatnot. So what you have there is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, interest rates are at record lows, so people can, if they can qualify, get a mortgage at an incredible rate. Businesses can borrow at very good rates, but of course, those who depend on the other side of that, on the interest payments, are being badly hurt. You know, the good news at the end of the day is that my institution, which, yes, I have been critical of this morning for obvious reasons, doesn't get to mess around with that. And, you know, the Fed does monetary policy in an independent way. Fortunately, the efforts of the Republican majority to actually audit, quote-unquote, audit the Fed and therefore insert Congress into the role of monetary policy will not succeed. And so I think interest rates and those sorts of decisions will continue to be made by people outside of the political environment.
On Twitter, once again, Arnold Siegel asserts this: Obama killed Simpson Bowles. You supported it. What do you think led to its lack of consideration?
Yeah, I think it's, first of all, the president did not embrace the Simpson Bowles proposal, and that disappoints me. I think saying Obama killed it is probably overstatement. Paul Ryan, who in his speech before the Republican convention accused the president of killing it, of course voted against it when he was on that committee. Voting against it, of course, meaning that it wasn't able then to come to the floor.
As did a few House Democrats.
Well, you know what was interesting? All of the House members voted against it. All of the senators, Republican and Democrat, voted for it. That tells you something about the difference of running every 2 years versus running every 6 years. But it did disappoint me that the president did not embrace it. I was one of the 38 who voted for it. I was actually one of 9 people in Congress who voted against every other budget and said, this is the answer. Because you know what? My colleagues know that that's the answer. The question is how many of them are going to say that publicly in a way that gets us to where we need to do, gets the president on board, gets John Boehner on board, and gets that deal done.
Next call for you is from Pittsburgh.
Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? I am no, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Webster. No, I'm aye. On this vote, the ayes are 169, the nays are 238. The amendment is not agreed. The unfinished business, the request for a recorded vote on amendment number 2 printed in House Report number 112-668 by the gentleman from California, Mr. Waxman, on which further proceedings were postponed, on which the ayes prevail by a voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment number 2, printed in House Report number 112-668, offered by Mr. Waxman of California.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of the request for recorded vote will rise and be counted. Sufficient number having risen. Recorded vote is ordered. Members record their votes by electronic device. This is a 2-minute vote. 2-minute vote.
The underlying bill would end the Department of Energy's Alternative Energy Loan Guarantee Program for applications submitted after 2011. They're considering 2 amendments. First amendment by Diana DeGette, Henry Waxman's amendment, which basically would gut the bill. It's a 2-minute vote, and these are the last amendment votes after this. Motion to recommit and final passage, and the House will be done for the week. One member not on the floor voting yet this morning is Paul Ryan, the vice presidential candidate. He's speaking at this hour at the Value Voters Summit here in Washington. We're covering it live over on C-SPAN 2. When he wraps up, we'll be taking your phone call reaction to his speech.
There is 1 minute left in this vote. 1 minute. Members will please vote quickly. Has every member voted? On this vote, the ayes are 170, the nays are 231. The amendment is not agreed. Questions on the amendment in the nature of a substitute. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Accordingly, under the rule, the committee rises. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. So the State of the Union has under consideration H.R. 6213. Pursuant to the House Resolution 779, I report the bill back to the House with an amendment adopted in the Committee of the Whole. You ready? The Chair of the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union reports that the committee has had under consideration the bill H.R. 6213 and pursuant to House Resolution 779 reports the bill back to the House with an amendment adopted in the Committee of the Whole. Under the rule, the previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the amendment in the nature of a substitute. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question is on engrossment and third reading of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Third reading.
A bill to limit further taxpayer exposure from the Loan Guarantee Program established under Title 17 of the Energy Policy Act of 2005.
Gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order, and I have a motion to recommit at the desk.
Gentleman opposed to the bill.
I am opposed to the bill in its current form.
Gentleman qualifies. The House will be in order. Would all members please remove their conversations from the floor, clear the aisle and the well. The gentleman from Massachusetts qualifies. The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Markey of Massachusetts moves to recommit the bill H.R. 6213 to the Committee on Energy and Commerce with instructions to report the same back
and to dispense with the reading of the bill.
Is there objection? Without objection. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this motion to level the playing field for wind energy and for the guarantee of American jobs coming out of this No More Cylinders Act. This is the final amendment to this bill. It will not kill the bill. It will not send the bill back to committee. And if adopted, the bill will immediately proceed to final passage as amended. My motion will ensure that we will only give tens of billions of dollars worth of loan guarantees that are authorized under this No More Cylinders Act, as long as we will also avoid raising taxes on the wind industry by $4 billion a year, which is what is going to happen if we allow the production tax credit to expire at the end of this year. What is already happening in the wind industry? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the wind industry says that we are going to lose 40,000 jobs next year in the wind industry. What has already happened in the last 2 months? Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
Gentleman is correct. The House is not in order. Would all members please remove their conversations from the floor? The gentleman deserves to be heard. The gentleman is recognized.
Jobs are already being lost in this country because the Republicans are allowing the production tax credit for wind to expire even as they authorize these tens of billions of dollars of new projects for nuclear, for coal. We're not saying that wind should not be treated separately, especially. All we want is equal treatment for wind. Equal treatment. What's happening in Iowa? Last month, Clipper Wind Company lost 174 jobs. Iowa, gone. Last week, GAMSA, 165 jobs in Pennsylvania, gone. This past Tuesday, Mulder Fiber, 92 jobs in the wind industry in South Dakota, gone. By this time next year, 40,000 jobs in the wind industry, gone. That's part one of this amendment.
Gentleman is recognized.
1,700 jobs already gone, on our way to 40,000 jobs lost in the wind industry. What's the second part of the amendment? The second part says that if the Republicans are going to authorize these tens of billions of loan guarantees in this No More Cylinders Act, then 75% of all of the equipment made under these loan guarantees are made here in America with American workers making that equipment under their bill. If we're going to be doing this, make it in America. 75% of all the equipment should come from our country. Now, why is this amendment even necessary? Well, when the Ryan budget came out here on the House floor in February of 2011, 1 month after they took over, the Ryan budget cuts clean energy by 90%. What happened in April out here on the House floor? They cut wind and solar by $17 billion and kept in all of the money for nuclear and coal. That's not a level playing field. That's going after wind. That's going after solar. And in this bill, what do? Well, basically what they say is they can keep in $88.5 billion for nuclear and for coal loan guarantees, but for wind and solar, we're sorry. What we're saying in this amendment is let's have a level playing field. Let's make sure that wind is given the opportunity to flourish in the marketplace. Let's not tilt the playing field so that wind is a guaranteed loser in Iowa, in Pennsylvania, in Colorado, in states all across this country which are right now facing a 40,000 job loss. That's what this is all about. Don't give $4 billion a year to the oil industry and say that can't be touched, and at the same time you're cutting $4 billion from the wind industry, an industry that created 12,000 new megawatts of electricity in our country this year. So this amendment is very simple, very simple. It says keep the $4 billion for the wind industry so that we don't lose 40,000 wind jobs in the next 6 months in our country, in state after state after state after state in our country that are already beginning to see those losses, and make sure that 75% of all of the equipment that's made under this loan guarantee program are made by American workers here in the United States. Vote yes for this recommittal motion. Get it here in America.
For what
Speaker,
purpose?
the House is not in order.
For what purposes, gentleman from Michigan, seek recognition?
I would claim the time in opposition to the motion to recommit.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I would ask the House to be in order.
House will be in order.
And, Mr. Speaker, I will be brief. I would just note that the projects contemplated under Title 17 aren't your usual run-of-the-mill brick-and-mortar construction projects. Usually they're advanced energy projects that require highly specialized equipment, complex components, and they aren't always available domestically. I'd also like to just note that extending the wind tax credit will in fact be part of the larger debate that the House will have as we look at all of the expiring tax provisions, and I certainly look for Mr. Markey's support as we look to extend all of those later on, particularly his good folks in the state of Massachusetts. I would just like to say this. This has been a very long and extensive investigation. And I'll tell you that Cliff Stearns, the chairman of our Oversight Subcommittee, has done a very good job as we have tried to get to the very bottom of this mess. And it is our job, every one of us here, to look for wherever we can find fraud and abuse and mismanagement in any federal program, to identify that and then come back and fix it so that it cannot happen again. No more Solyndras. That's what this bill does. It is a credit to the investigatory team and to Mr. Stearns' leadership. We need to defeat this motion to recommit and pass the bill. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back his time. Without objection, the previous question is ordered on the motion to recommit. The question is on the motion to recommit. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. Motion is not. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I request the recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. Sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, the Chair will reduce to 5 minutes the minimum time for any electronic vote on the question of passage. This is a 15-minute vote.
The House bill drafted in reaction to the Solyndra bankruptcy would limit federal loan guarantees for clean and renewable energy projects. This is Representative Markey's Democratic motion to recommit. It would add a section to the bill relating to Buy America provisions. The new section prohibits the Secretary of Energy from issuing loan guarantees for an energy project unless the applicant certifies to the Secretary that at least 75% of the materials and components used for construction, manufacturing, or operations of the project are to be produced in the United States. This is a 15-minute vote, and final passage vote is next, and that'll wrap it up for legislative work in the House this week. As this vote continues, a conversation from this morning on the new Census Bureau report, their annual report on income, poverty, and health.
Headlines from the Thursday newspapers, beginning with this one from the New York Times. U.S. income gap rose, signs of uneven recovery. Below that, the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Household income sinks to 95 level. And below that, from Reuters, number of U.S. poor holds steady, but earnings gap grows. Co-authored by Susan Heavey. And all of these come from an annual Census Department report, which is titled Income, Poverty, and Health Insurance Coverage 2011. We've got the report here. We also have a Census Bureau chief who is going to walk us through what the report says in detail, and Susan Heavey, whom we said earlier wrote a story off of this for Reuters, is at our table. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Johnson, what does Census try to do with this annual survey?
So I think the purpose of this is to look at these three concepts, income, poverty, and health insurance. And this year we found three important headlines, as you saw. Median household income fell 1.5% between 2010 and 2011. Poverty remained statistically unchanged at 15%, but there's still 46 million people in poverty, and health insurance fell from 16.3% to 15.7%. I think one of the other headlines you mentioned is
people without health insurance?
So people at the uninsured rate, people without health insurance coverage. And the other headline you mentioned is there was an increase in inequality between 2010 and 2011.
We're going to learn more about this as we go through some of the details of a very extensive survey. But what does the idea of linking health care coverage into this report on household economy?
So I think one of the big concerns with health care coverage is how it then relates to people's income and people's poverty level, to know who along the spectrum of the income distribution is uninsured. So I think that's why we put it together with this concept of income and poverty.
Susan Heavey, when you looked at the overall report, was your headlines clear to you, the direction you wanted to go with this from the numbers?
This was actually a really mixed picture, and so it did make it difficult to cover because we saw so many different pieces of data that on the surface seemed to be pointing in different directions. I talked to a lot of economists beforehand, and they were actually surprised when the numbers came out because they had been expecting poverty to go up. And so when it was flat, sort of changed the picture a little bit. And then you saw the income gap there, and then a lot of economists had been expecting health insurance to be flat as well, and then that actually saw a drop. So it actually offered a pretty mixed picture, and I think what it did was it highlighted the difficulty people were still feeling in the wake of the recession. This is 2011 data, you have to remember, even though we're almost at the end of 2012, it takes a while for the Census Bureau to gather everything. So it's last year's calendar data.
Will you talk a bit about how you do gather the numbers that are in the survey?
Sure. So this comes from the current population survey, a survey of about 100,000 households throughout the country. So we have hundreds and thousands of data collectors out there. So it's really important. I mean, the most important concept of this collection is the people out there, the respondents. So we gather their data, we anonymize it and create these statistics that look at the poverty and the income. And it's collected, sort of in the spring, asking about the previous calendar year, hoping that their tax time helps them recall what they got the previous calendar year, and then it takes us 6 months to process it, to release it in September.
Since you do look at year-over-year numbers, do you go to the same 100,000 families each time?
No. So this survey is the same survey that's used to collect data for the unemployment rate, which goes out every month. So on that survey, we add questions in February, March, and April to look at the income data over time.
To our audience, a couple things as we get into the discussion. First of all, we'll be here for 45 more minutes, so lots of time to look at the numbers here. We have changed the phone lines for this segment. It's regional, Eastern, Central time zones, and Mountain and Pacific time zones. And we'll put those numbers on the screen for you as you're dialing in. You can also tweet us at C-SPAN WJ. And this question that we're asking you this morning has been posted on our Facebook page. And what we're asking for your participation is for you to tell us about your own household income. And are you seeing signs of change, positive or negative? And what do you think the cause of that is? We've posted that question on Facebook last night, and we have some of the comments people have already added to it, and we'll share those with you as we go through the numbers. Okay, let's dig in. We're going to start with our first slide here. Real median household income 1967 to 2011. So walk us through what we learned from this.
So if you look at the picture, you can see the trend in household income. This is real, adjusted for inflation over this time period. And those light blue shaded periods are the recessionary periods defined by the National Bureau of Economic Research. So you can see the tick down at the very end, between 2010 and 2011, the 1.5% fall, and median household income is $50,100. And if you go back, you can go back to the 2007 before the last recession, and there's about a fall of about 8%. And if you go back to the previous peak in 1999, it's about a fall of 8.9%. So you can see it's been falling over this time period, but over the total period, it's risen.
But back from 1967, not lots of growth overall.
Well, about 19% from 1967 up to 2011.
Median household income in 67, 42.1. Today, adjusted for inflation, 51. So what are the components of household income?
So this is what we call money income. So it's all the cash that you receive. So from your employer, from your investments, your interest and dividends, Social Security, your TANF or welfare recipiency, social supplemental security income, anything that's cash that comes into the household. What it doesn't include, and this is some of the criticism we heard this week, it doesn't include things like the food stamps or your taxes or your earned income tax credit, because it's just focusing on the money income the household receives.
Or the value of your home.
Or things like the value of your home, value of your possessions, value of your car. Your health benefits doesn't include those things.
So it's not assets, it's income.
It's income, right.
So as you cover these stories, you talk to real people out there. So what are people telling you about the real effects of these numbers?
I've heard a couple of different things over the last couple of weeks as I got prepared for this. On one hand, I went out to some different food banks and charities and talked to some people who are still really feeling pinched and hurt by the recession. And there they see demand not flat, but just ever increasing, especially in the food banks. There were a couple of recent pieces of information that came out on food insecurity recently and on food stamps, and we still see a lot of growth there. People are having trouble just kind of making those basic ends meet. And the health insurance aspect is actually really interesting. I spoke to a man who was out in California. He saw his income drop a lot over the last several years. He's a freelancer, so he doesn't have health insurance, and he can't afford it because he also got diabetes at the same time that his income was going down. And then what happened was he just ends up driving very carefully. He told me, you know, every day he crosses the street looking a couple extra times, because if you don't have health insurance, even if you can make do with less income, it can really affect your bottom line. And that's actually something that can put people into poverty very quickly.
So I'm going to start with a Facebook comment that actually questions the basis of the statistics, so you can talk more about it. John Mickley writes, I like the stats on how many households in poverty have cell phones, internet, big screen TVs, and cable and satellite. I wonder what the poverty level would be if the entitlement monies they receive were counted.
So again, we can look at some of the entitlements. So Social Security is included in money income. And you see that with Social Security benefits, the poverty rate of the elderly falls tremendously. Without that, they would be large. We include TANF and welfare recipiency. What we don't include, like I said, are the Medicaid and Medicare contributions. And some people have done that calculation.
I want to look at this here, and this looks at the real median household income by age of householder, and this is just for 2 years, 2010 and 2011. What do you do with these numbers?
Right, so the two things you can see from this figure. You can see this hump-shaped pattern, as we expect, so that the young and the old at both sides have lower median income than the middle age. So from 35 to 44 and 45 to 54, they're higher income. The other thing you can see is the change over time. So overall, there was a fall for people under 65 years age between 2010 and 2011. But there's only a couple specific age groups that had a fall in their income. That's the 35 to 44-year-olds and the 55 to 64-year-olds. The other interesting thing is there's been an increase in the number of people 65 years and older. And since their income is lower, that could have kept the median income down, because you add more and more people who are earning less, then that keeps the income down.
Always considered the peak earning years for people, yes. And so we see that they would be then the highest, and also they're not experiencing much change in their household income. Let me go with our first comment about what's happening in people's home lives. Laura Zahner tweets to us, our income has held steady, but it certainly isn't buying as much as it did before. Inflation is real despite what Bernanke thinks. I'm going to ask you to talk about the Fed and its view on inflation.
Well, we saw some big action from the Fed yesterday. They took some sweeping measures to step in here and try to boost the economy. They're going to be buying billions of dollars of bonds, treasury bonds and mortgage bonds. And it really shocked the market. We saw stocks go up on that news, and they're trying to step in. I mean, their whole job is to try to keep inflation down and unemployment down. They haven't really acted very much, and we saw them really step in yesterday. It's going to take a while to see over time what that does and whether that affects people's buying power, if they're going to feel more confident and go out and buy more things, or if they're just going to wait for the election and move on from there.
Here's another report from Car Top K9, who writes, my 401k bounced up and down during the Bush years, mostly down. Now it's on the rise, but still has not gained what I put into it. What has happened overall to people's investment income since 2008?
Well, you can look at that chart we looked at earlier, and regular income has lost ground since the mid-90s, and I think investment income would also reflect that, too, where people just haven't caught up to where they were before.
Renton, Washington. Hello to Henry. You're a part of our conversation this morning, Henry. You're on the air.
I make $1,000 a month working at fast food, and it's hard to pay bills these days. Gas goes up, salaries high, everything. And like you say, I think C-SPAN, the host in the feature, should moderate the presidential debates maybe in 2016. And I got one into that lady, I guess. I shouldn't say this, but I'd like to see her take her shoes off.
All right, we're just going to stop right there. Let's go to real household income at selected percentiles. This is the income inequality, the part of the story that we looked at. I'm going to have you walk us through, and then we'll have Susan Hebe comment.
Okay, so you can look at this. The blue line is that median household income that we saw before. It looks fairly flat because we've added a number of other percentiles. So the median is the income for which 50% of the population have income below it, 50% above it. If you go down to the 10th percentile, we see that was only $12,000 in 2011. This is the income for which 10% of the households have income below this. And you go on the other end to the 90th percentile in red, You see that's $143,600. That's the income for which 10% of the households have income above that level, and then you can see the 95th even higher. So the thing you can see from this chart is that red line and that purple line go up a lot more than the blue line and the orange line, indicating increase in the gap between the high income and the low income.
Everybody has experienced some sort of downturn since the recession in this.
So the interesting thing is that the 90th percentile actually showed no statistically significant fall between 2010 and 2011. However, the 10th percentile did show a fall of 1.9%.
The highest level.
Yeah.
And if we look at, this is essentially flat over the course of these several decades.
Right. It's hard to say it looks flat, but again, you go back to 1967, it was 9,600, and it's 12,000. So it has increased. Just if you go back to 1999, it's been fairly flat.
Okay, so tell me about the politics of this chart, if you would.
So this reinforces the idea of what we already know and have seen over time, which is that increasing wealth gap in our country, where you have the top earners earning more, although they were also affected by the recession, and you have the bottom earners not gaining ground, and that middle class is getting narrower and narrower. And that's a big issue in this presidential campaign. You have President Obama talking a lot about the middle class, and he wants policies that are going to reinforce that. And you have his Republican challenger, Mitt Romney, saying he can use his private experience, it's about jobs, and that he can help boost everyone's living that way. So it's become a big issue, this divide in our country, and sometimes it can be hard to see. So it's interesting that you'll have different regional callers, because I think the picture nationwide in places like Nevada are going to be very different than they are maybe here in Washington.
Now, if we actually looked at household assets, would this even be larger? Because in these two upper percentiles, one can presume there's higher level of investment income?
There's a lot of other things that go into how wealthy you might feel. If you have a car, if you have a house, if you have equity in your house, or if you're underwater in your house, health insurance and other benefits, not just health insurance benefits that you might have from your job, they all can help you feel wealthier than you are. And at the same time, to some of the comments that have been made, if it costs you more to fill up that car, or it costs you more when you go to the grocery store, even if your income is the same, you're not feeling as good as you did a couple of years ago. And I think that's something that a lot of people are saying.
And there's a lot of research on the what would be called the asset gap, and there's a couple other data sets that collect that data. We have the Survey of Income and Program Participation that has asset data that shows these things, and we have reports on our website that look at this. So I think that would be an interesting thing to compare to the income gap.
And there's actually been some data on the asset poor.
This vote, the yeas are 175, the nays are 234. The motion is not adopted. Question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
On that, Mr. Speaker, I request a recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. Sufficient number having risen, a recorded